starts right now.
And we start this noon with late-breaking news. Police found a man dead on the southwest side.
They tell us someone shot him. Garrett Berger is live in the 7,000 block of Old Pearsall Road.
So, Garrett, police found the man this morning, but they think he actually got shot earlier this morning?
Well, they're not exactly sure. They don't have an exact time frame as of yet. What they know now, they're suspecting he may have been shot last night. What they do know is they got a call at 9:30 this morning after a driver here on Old Pearsall Road outside of Loop 410 saw this truck behind me that was pulled over on the side of the road. That driver pulled over to check, thinking it might be a stranded motorist. Instead, what they found was a man in his 40s shot in the upper body. That's when they called in police. Police right now waiting for the medical examiner so they can move the body a little bit more, try to figure out more of what happened. They do say he has an apparent gunshot wound to the upper body. They did not find any weapons on him immediately, but as I said, they are waiting for the medical examiner before they do too much manipulating of the body. They don't have an exact time frame. They don't have suspects or witnesses at this point. So the police sergeant who did speak with us said that they're asking anybody who might have some information to definitely call in. Now, right now, as you can see, this stretch of Old Pearsall Road behind me is dead. It's completely blocked off up to Covell Road down to the southwest. So if you are trying to travel down this way, you do want to avoid Old Pearsall Road. Live on the southwest side, I'm Garrett Berger, KSAT12 News.
Thank you, Garrett. A man found guilty of murder today after he was re-indicted in connection with the crime. Kyle Phillips was also found guilty of assaulting a peace officer and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Each of those carries a 20-year sentence, and the murder conviction comes with a 30-year sentence.
A judge says the sentences will be served concurrently with credit for time served. Phillips was one of 7 people charged in the July 2020 murder of a 19-year-old woman. Police say the group shot and robbed Jasmine Williams inside her home, all while her 2 young children were there.
Also new at noon, the chief of police of Fair Oaks Ranch has been placed on paid administrative leave while officials there investigate accusations that he intimidated officers at work.
That's according to a 14-page complaint obtained by KSAT. It accuses Chief Tim Mooring of using intimidation and bullying to conceal his behavior from city administration in a series of incidents the past several years. That includes an accusation where an officer says he slammed his hands on his desk, knocking over items during a meeting with the officer in his office last month. The complaint also includes a detailed narrative from a November 2019 retirement party for the department's former chief, in which Mooring was accused of providing prescription Adderall pills to a city animal control officer and a police officer.
KSAT could find no record that Mooring has been criminally charged in connection with the officer's complaint. You can read more about this story on KSAT.com.
And a couple has lost their home, and so far, no one knows exactly why.
San Antonio fire investigators still looking into the cause of a fire. There was early this morning.
As Katrina Weber shows us, fire crews face challenges that went beyond the smoke and flames.
The sight of smoke is what first signaled there was trouble on Clydeville Road. But when San Antonio firefighters arrived in this neighborhood just behind the airport, they found a full-blown fire.
And the whole side of the house was on fire. It's the original house, then there's several additions onto the back.
They believe one of those additions, either a garage or utility room, is where the fire started before 4 this morning. It didn't stay there, though. It burned through 2 cars, the front and back yards, and the house itself.
It was a very stubborn, difficult for us to put out because of the different buildings. The garage where the 2 cars were, the metal roof collapsed on top of that.
Firefighters also had to worry about live ammunition that was set off by the fire. 2 adults, a man and woman, meanwhile, escaped the house on their own, then turned to family who lived nearby for help and comfort.
The people did get checked out. They did get some smoke. They got checked out by EMS and they're fine.
Their home is not okay. Firefighters say the damage was extensive. It looks like there is at least one area that wasn't touched by the fire, a backyard playground that the people here had for their grandchildren. Looks like the fire burned right up to the edge of it. What started that fire is still the subject of investigation. Although they looked to the people and the ruins for clues, fire investigators did not come up with any quick answers. Katrina Weber, KSAT12 News.
Outside with live cam, Mia Montgomery now joining us here on the Noon Show. And Do you have any better news than any of your other fellow meteorologists about the weather?
Well, I know you were outside this morning with Science and Sarah. Did it feel a little bit better than the past couple of mornings?
For a while.
For a while, until the sun really started to come up and temperatures cranked up too. Yeah, so that is the good news for today, is we actually saw a weak frontal boundary push through at least the majority of south central Texas. It is draped just off to our south, though. Let's take a look at those dew points, because we do have drier air in place, especially north of that stalled boundary. Dew points how we measure the low level moisture in the atmosphere, in the 50s and even low 60s for places like Hondo, Uvalde, and stretching up to Rock Springs. But on the south side of that boundary, it is still humid and hot. But at least for us here in San Antonio, we're not really having to deal with that heat index value. That is good news. This morning, it felt just a little bit more refreshing out there because that drier air is in place. But of course, on the flip side, dry air really helps those temperatures crank up into the afternoon. So we are still expecting another triple-digit day here in town. 95, though, the current temperature already over at the airport. 94 in Bulverde. It's 98 in Pleasanton. Still a little humid out there in Atascosa County, so there is a heat index of about 100. Currently 97 in Castroville. Now, as we carry on throughout the remainder of this Wednesday, still expecting plenty of sunshine. Again, that forecast high around 104 degrees here in town. Not completely out of the question that we can't find a very stray shower, especially south of San Antonio. Coverage very, very isolated and low, with most of us missing out. High fire danger also going to be something to think about throughout the remainder of the day, because those dew points are so low and it is so dry outside. All right, so looking ahead, still hot, triple digits continue, elevated fire danger as well. But early next week, still looking at some signals that we could see a little Gulf wave move farther west. That could potentially give us slightly better rain chances. Still a lot of question marks with that, and we'll tell you what those are coming up in just a few.
Thank you, Mia. San Antonio police have arrested the father of a 3-year-old found with a handgun at school. Police tell us it all began yesterday morning at the Pre-K for SA West Education Center on Enrique Barrera Parkway. A teacher found the handgun in the 3-year-old's backpack and notified campus security. Police say the 35-year-old man now facing child endangerment charges. We are not identifying the father in an effort to protect the child. In a statement, Pre-K for SA says the child did not know the gun was in the backpack. Now the child is in the care of Child Protective Services. SAPD says it's possible more arrests could be coming. That situation has caused a change in policy. Pre-K for SA says backpacks will not be allowed on its campuses, at least for now. Parents are asking their kids to put their things in a clear Ziploc bag when they come to school.
The city of San Antonio is hosting 2 more town hall events tonight, asking for your opinion on the 2024 city budget. The town halls will continue through the end of the month all over our area. It's a chance for people to ask questions or comment on the budget plan. Between now and Saturday, there will be 4 of those town halls. 2 of those are happening at 6:30 this evening. One will be at San Antonio College, the other at the Phil Hartberger Park Urban Ecology Center. And there's another meeting happening tomorrow. You can see a full list on KSAT12. Just scan the QR code on your screen to go to this story. It also has an overview of some of the things included in the city's budget.
Still coming up, one star gets to Cowboys training camp, another one goes down. Who and how bad is that injury? Coming up.
It's been more than a week since deadly wildfires ravaged communities here on Maui. I'm Melissa Adan. Coming up, we have a report on the latest with the search and rescue efforts.
The death toll from the deadly wildfires on Maui has grown to 106, and that number could continue to rise.
Meanwhile, ABC's Melissa Adan shows us how search and rescue crews continue to go block by block through the destroyed community of Lahaina, looking for survivors or those who have perished.
The death toll from the Maui wildfires now surpassing 100 after intense flames decimated the historic town of Lahaina, with powerful winds sending power lines to the ground.
The wind was so crazy. You get all this wind blowing and now you get a fire. That was fuel, and just in a matter of minutes, that whole place was just engulfed.
Hawaiian Electric faces criticism for not shutting off the power amid high wind warnings. A class action lawsuit has already been filed against them. Hawaii's Governor Josh Green sharing that many of those killed by the wildfires have been found near the ocean.
We have to be very careful not to disturb the scene so that we can do the necessary recovery.
There are nearly 200 rescuers with 20 dogs in the impact zone, going through each building and house or what's left of them, searching for the hundreds unaccounted for. ABC's Whit Johnson, escorted by FEMA, getting a first-hand look at the devastation in Lahaina.
It's like a bomb went off. It's like a fire and a tornado and a hurricane all combined and just decimated this place. And it's one thing to see the pictures, but to see it in person, it just hits you in a different way.
Tributes and visuals for those lost beginning to pour in as 5 people who perished have now been identified, including 79-year-old Lahaina musician Buddy Jantok.
For him to be taken from us that way, I think that's what's the hardest to come to terms with.
This is the main roadblock with the access point to Lahaina. Right now, officials are reopening it from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. local for folks to get by. But the National Guard is standing by at the burned areas as search and rescue continues. Melissa Adan, ABC News, Maui.
And that's a developing story. And back here at home, we're looking at that sky, 97 degrees,
Yep.
but it is refreshing this morning, as you mentioned.
At least those dew points are down compared to where they have been the past several days. That definitely helps with the comfortableness factor. The heat index not really having to deal with that right now here in San Antonio. All right, a look at the aquifer level for this Wednesday. No change, 626.2, but we're still about 30 feet below the average. So we do have a lot of work to do with that. And in terms of the pollen count, just molds out there. The only allergen low at 230. All right, the heat is going to continue over the next several days, but a few rain chances possibly return by early next week. We'll have those details next.
Nothing like the smiling faces on the pictures of kids going back to school. Fiona and Jen have been showing us a lot of them on SA Live. Got some more to share with us.
Yes, we do. We want to know, of course, what were you like on your first day of school? I'm guessing you were shy.
Me? You know what? I was a little shy, and then I saw everybody crying in kindergarten, and then I was like, oh, maybe I should cry, but I didn't want to cry. But yeah, so that's what you want to know. Are you brave, excited, nervous, quiet, maybe? What about you, Fiona?
What do you think?
Our photographer's pointing to troublemaker for
You know, I was the quiet, shy one, believe it or not. Believe it or not. Until you got to know me.
Take some time, right?
Then
Okay, yes, we're both
keep me
cancers.
quiet.
Yes.
Yep.
I think that's the thing. What about you guys?
I think David Sears was quiet.
No.
Everyone in the station laughed at the same time.
I think that's trouble sitting right there.
Yeah, well.
What about you, Tiffany?
I was definitely quiet. I was quiet, but excited. So I was a mix.
Yes.
I was quiet for a minute.
For 1 second.
All right, be sure to scan that QR code on your screen and weigh in, and we'll check in the show.
All right, look forward to seeing that. Hey, Mia. Yes. It was like almost chilly this morning. I thought I had to get a blanket out. It was in the 60s.
It was almost chilly.
Like digging through the closet, looking for the blankets and the coats. Like,
get my mittens, get my scarf. I know it's been a while since we had a morning low temperature, at least, up into the hill country, especially in the upper 60s and low 70s, all thanks to some of that drier air that's moved in as well. All right, so yes, we know that it was a very refreshing start out there earlier this morning, but yes, dry air can cool down more efficiently through the overnight hours, but it also warms up efficiently into the afternoon. So today, with a forecast high of about 104 here in San Antonio, that is going to make for our 51st triple-digit day so far this year. Right now, we're in 4th place for the largest and highest number of triple-digit days seen in a given year, but we're still going to tack on to that number in the days ahead. By the way, if that 104 does verify later on this afternoon, that will break the existing record of 103 that was set back in 2020. So also that record-challenging heat still in the forecast, at least over the next couple of days. Tomorrow, though, we still have a forecast high of about 107. If that verifies and comes to pass, that will will be the hottest day that we have experienced, at least here in town, so far this year. So we'll see how that pans out. And you can see still triple digits, 104 on Friday and then 103 as we head into the Saturday and Sunday time frame. Now, right now we've got plenty of sunshine. We are well on our way. 95 officially over at SA International. But again, dew points are down, so it feels actually a degree cooler, that heat index value measured in the shade. But as we continue on by 4 to 5 o'clock, forecast high of about 104. Sure, a very stray shower, not completely off the table, especially south of San Antonio. And then those temperatures gradually fall off eventually into the upper 90s by 8 p.m. Still expecting clear to mostly clear skies for any Wednesday evening plans as we continue to see those thermometers fall through the 90s later on tonight. 105 in Floresville, stretching over to Nixon, 103 in Seguin. That forecast high temperature today, 104 for places like Devine, Hondo, and stretching over to Sabinal. Now, unfortunately, we will see the humidity return, especially as we head into our Thursday morning. Those dew points back up into the 60s. So not quite as nice as what we saw out there earlier this morning, but because those dew points have dropped, especially this afternoon, when you combine that with the dry grasses and vegetation in place, fire danger is going to be elevated, high to even very high, those categories for the vast majority of South Central Texas, issued by the Texas A&M Forest Service. So fire safety, definitely something to practice throughout the remainder of today and honestly over the next couple of days. But we do have a small shift in our weather pattern that's possible, especially by early next week. So we've got this high pressure system in place, but it's going to move farther up to the north, especially by Monday and Tuesday of next week. And that will open the door for a few Gulf disturbances to work their way farther westward and, yes, potentially approach the Texas Gulf coastline. But there are still a lot of question marks with this. What we know is that that disturbance will track into the western Gulf, specifically in the first half of next week, and it will bring rain-making moisture with it. But what we need to monitor, what we still don't know for sure, where exactly will that disturbance track? Because that is going to determine who sees the best rain chances. Could it completely move farther off to the south or closer to the south central Texas Gulf coastline? And also, how organized is it whenever it does approach part of the Texas Gulf coastline? So as of right now, we've got about a 10 to 20% chance for a few isolated showers, especially into Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, if we can find that tropical moisture. So that's definitely something to check back in on in the coming days. Until then, just more heat and that fire danger to deal with, guys.
Thanks, Mia.
Coming up, update on the Micah Parsons injury and the UTSA quarterback getting all kinds of attention. I'll tell you what that is.
Football coverage brought to you by Davis Law Firm.
Oh, this is never good for any player or team. You can barely see him, but that's defensive stud Micah Parsons on the ground holding his left leg. It's happening in camp yesterday. He missed the final 11 plays of the first team red zone work and later was seen limping. Parsons told reporters he got kicked in the leg and will have the injury checked out. He had his left calf wrapped and he didn't return to practice. He said, quote, "It's just something that happened to me. It's football. I'm not worried about it," end quote. The Dallas Morning News has a source that's close to that situation says he's fine. This guy is feeling fine. Right guard Zach Martin went through his first camp workout yesterday. He missed the first 3 weeks of training camp because he was unhappy with the contract. He met with Jerry Jones before the boys' first preseason game on Saturday, and 2 days later, a new done deal was announced. It'll guarantee him $36 million over the next 2 seasons. The deal takes him from the 8th highest paid guard in the NFL to the 3rd highest. As you can imagine, his teammates were very happy to see him at camp.
Yeah, no, it was great. I said my head hurt last night because I was smiling and laughing so much all day. You know, I don't think I stopped talking from the moment I got here till I went to bed. So it was great to see these guys. You know, 3 weeks doesn't seem that long, but when you're sitting in Dallas in 110-degree heat every day, seeing your guys out there having fun at training camp, it seems a little bit longer than it is.
And look who's there. That is Kevin Costner. Stopped by Cowboys camp, watched the action from both the field and up in the tower. Of course, he's been to Oxnard many times, so it's not a big surprise to see him at Cowboys camp. Hey, a lot of attention on UTSA quarterback Frank Harris this season. He was named to the Manning Award watch list. He's also been named to the Davey O'Brien Award, Maxwell Award, and Walter Camp Player of the Year Award watch list. entering his final collegiate season. Pretty much has the keys to the car there in UTSA. Gets into a sports. Mary Rominger has more.
Larry, there's no telling what UTSA football can accomplish with a healthy Frank Harris, who returns to the program for his 7th season. Fall camp is coming to a close, and head coach Jeff Traylor says the left-hander is throwing the football the best he's seen him throw it.
He just knows the offense so well. He's got total control of it. I mean, literally. I know I've kind of, each year we've given him more and more and more and more, but like he really has it all now. He'll check any play he wants to, protection. He's put the game plan in for all I care.
I'm feeling great. You just cherish all the moments, all the grind, all the camaraderie, being with each other all day long. I know I'm going to miss it, when next year comes around.
ESPN revealed its preseason top 100 college football player rankings, and Harris is listed at number 32, higher than any other player out of the state of Texas. Mary Rominger, KSAT12 Sports.
Thanks, Mary. Here's UTSA Athletics' first ever Hall of Fame class, and it is a good one. Marcus Davenport, Lynn Hickey, Larry Coker, Mackenzie Adams, Devin Brown, and Tamika Roberts. The class of 6 will be inducted during homecoming weekend in late October. Congratulations to them. About time they had. And the NBA released its complete schedule for group play of that inaugural NBA in-season tournament, which tips off in early November. The West, made up of 3 groups, just like the East. The 6 group winners and 2 wild cards will advance to the knockout rounds. Wemby and the Spurs are the only team that has more than 2 of its 4 group play games on ESPN and TNT. That's how popular San Antonio all of a sudden become. The Spurs' first Group C play game is Friday, November 10th versus Minnesota at home, and they'll play at OKC on Tuesday, November 14th. They'll host Sacramento on Friday the 17th, and will close out group play on Friday, November 24th at Golden State. And this little tournament thing is going to be interesting to see how it all works out. They're all regular season games, but they kind of like formed it into some sort of tournament thing. So this is going to be interesting to see it work.
It's going to be fun.
Well, let's hope so, especially with Wemby.
Spurs mania all over town. All right, there's more to come. A woman reunited with a nurse 19 years after the woman found her abandoned as a newborn, and the journey the meeting led to an even more unbelievable discovery. A long-lost family member that was much closer than she thought.
And also new today at 5, health insurance can offer some peace of mind just in case somebody in the family needs to see a doctor. But does the family pet have health coverage? We'll tell you what you need to know about pet insurance today at 5 after Entertainment Tonight.
Former President Donald Trump and 18 co-defendants now have 9 days to surrender to Georgia authorities. In the meantime, as ABC's Justin Finch reports, Trump is now going on the attack.
Now facing 4 indictments, former President Donald Trump is leveling new attacks on the criminal justice system and doubling down on false election fraud claims on social media following his latest charges in Georgia. That state's Republican Governor Brian Kemp firing back, posting the 2020 Georgia election was not stolen. In Georgia, Trump is charged with 13 counts, including racketeering. The indictment placing him atop a criminal organization that also includes 18 aides, attorneys and associates, and 30 unnamed co-conspirators, all accused in a plot to keep Trump in the White House despite his 2020 election loss. Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis.
Do I intend to try the 19 defendants in this indictment together? Yes.
Former Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani, who falsely accused Georgia poll workers of stealing ballots, now saying he's being indicted for being a lawyer.
I thought when I was doing this, I was protected by the fact I was defending him.
Meantime, Mark Meadows is filing to move his charges to federal court, arguing he was acting in his role as Trump's White House chief of staff. Others could follow.
Donald Trump has a tougher argument than the people who worked for him. The people who worked for him, I think, can say, look, he was my boss.
Meadows allegedly set up Trump's call with Georgia's Secretary of State.
So what are we going to do here, folks? I only need 11,000 votes.
The Georgia indictment also details 11 calls Trump allegedly made to pressure Republican officials. Prosecutors also noting an alleged plot to recruit bogus electors who sent false votes to Washington. The Fulton County Sheriff says he's expecting all 19 defendants to turn themselves in at the county jail by noon Friday, August 25th. Justin Finch, ABC News, Washington.
Overseas, North Korea saying Army Private Travis King bolted across the border from South Korea last month after he became disillusioned with the inequality of American society and racial discrimination in the Army. However, it's impossible to verify the authenticity of the comments attributed to King. North Korean state media reported the allegations today. It's the first time the country has addressed King's detention. It said North Korea's investigation into King's illegal entry would continue. A U.S. Defense Department official said the Pentagon was working to bring King back to the U.S. The soldier's family said his mother is appealing to North Korea to treat her son humanely. Russia once again targeting the grain infrastructure in southern Ukraine. Russia hit storage facilities and ports overnight using drones. Kiev has increasingly used those terminals for grain transport to Europe after Moscow broke off a key wartime export deal through the Black Sea. Ukraine's economy is heavily dependent on farming. Its agricultural exports, like those of Russia, are also crucial for world food supplies.
Alec Baldwin could face charges once again for the deadly shooting on the set of the film Rust. Variety reports that a forensic report released Tuesday found that Baldwin's revolver would only fire if the trigger was pulled. That forensic report was commissioned by special prosecutors. Baldwin has denied pulling the trigger on the gun that fired a bullet that killed cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Involuntary manslaughter charges were dismissed against him in April after evidence suggested the gun may have misfired after being tampered with. However, the dismissal decision didn't absolve Baldwin of culpability and charges may be refiled.
Today marks the one-year anniversary of the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act. President Joe Biden is set to give an address today highlighting the health care, tax, and climate law. The White House says it is also launching an interactive tool so people can track how the law is impacting Americans. The administration estimates the climate provisions have created more than 170,000 jobs and invested more than $110 billion in clean energy. And more homeowners are tapping into their home equity for cash. They're using it to cover the cost of renovations and pay off debt. The trend is developing as home values remain strong across the country. Average mortgage rates are close to 7%, and with low inventory in most housing markets in the U.S., home prices have held firm after surging during the pandemic. According to the St. Louis Federal Reserve, that means homeowners are now collectively sitting on nearly $30 trillion in home equity. As a result, the Mortgage Bankers Association says home equity loans and lines of credit jumped 50% last year compared to 2 years earlier.
If your water bill is higher than usual, you might want to check for a leak, and the heat may be the reason why. Plumbers say they are getting more calls than usual from people seeing high water bills. The culprit is often a leak, since soil is dry from the summer heat. Add in heavy water demand, and that can cause your pipes to shift or crack.
Especially older PVC that might have become a little bit more brittle, and now when that pressure, the ground pressure is pushing on them in different ways, they have a tendency to crack at their weakest point.
If you find a soggy spot in your yard or your water bill is unusually high, it may be time to call your plumber.
Outside with Live Cam, I guess you got to give the heat some credit. It doesn't waste any time getting higher and higher. I mean, it's like we started this thing, it was like 93. We're already up to 97 a half hour later.
I feel like during the noon hour, too, you just really start to see those temperatures crank back up, especially when you have views like that, nothing but sunshine. You wouldn't even know that was a live cam if the cars weren't moving, I feel like. But yes, temperatures are definitely well on their way to the triple digits, especially here in San Antonio. Again, 104, that forecast high later on this afternoon. Check out places like Eagle Pass in Carrizo Springs already this lunchtime hour, just 1 degree shy of the century mark, checking in at 99. It's 98 in Cotulla, 95 in Hondo, 96 in Kerrville, and 98 out east in Gonzales. But of course, the farther north that you go, we do have those drier, lower dew points in place, so it's not too bad in terms of the heat index. But of course, it is going to be a toasty one, especially by the time you are stepping out to pick up the kids from school. 102 by 3 p.m. Still plenty of sunshine sunshine by 5 o'clock, 104, and then barely making it into the upper 90s by the 8 o'clock hour later on this evening. I did mention earlier that 10% chance for a very stray shower, better chances of finding that the farther south and west that you go of San Antonio. By about 5 o'clock, it is possible we put some of that daytime heat to work, combined with what's left of that stalled boundary just off to our south. But again, coverage is going to be very low, with most of us unfortunately staying dry. And that is still going to be the theme over the next several days. 107 the forecast high tomorrow, 104 on Friday, and then 103 as we head into the first half of the upcoming weekend. Again, early next week, we need to monitor that Gulf disturbance. So we'll talk about that, plus take a look at the supply and demand capacity in the days ahead, coming up in just a few.
Thank you, Mia. We'll look forward to that. There has been a big increase in local COVID-19 cases here in Bexar County. San Antonio Metro Health reported more than 1,600 new cases this week. That is a 387% increase from the start of July. University Health Doctor says the increase in activity follows a summer trend across the country. The strain behind most of these new cases is an Omicron subvariant called EG.5. A new vaccine booster expected to be released this fall is targeting these subvariants.
It'll be available by October, but they do want people to wait right now so they get this updated booster, which will more closely match what's circulating. Most people have already been exposed to some of these Omicron subvariants, and the most recent booster dose also contained that as well.
Now, despite the increases in cases, Metro Health tells us hospitalizations are still low. They have pop-up clinics for people who are looking for vaccines, and you do not have to register. We have a link to that information at KSAT12.
YouTube is stepping up its efforts to stamp out medical misinformation on its platform. The company says it is now removing false claims about cancer treatments. This includes content promoting unproven treatments or therapies that have already been deemed harmful by health authorities. A common false claim is that patients should take vitamin C instead of radiation therapy. The restrictions are already in effect. Enforcement will be ramped up in the coming weeks with both human and automated moderation reviews. YouTube already bans misinformation about vaccines and abortions and any content that promotes eating disorders.
It has been an incredible 2 months for a woman in New York after she found out she was abandoned as a baby. Now, that discovery led to her to not only reconnect with the nurse who found her, but also a brother she never knew she had.